I think a good comparison to this motorcycle is actually whiskey. Take a sip, have it sit in your mouth for a bit, feel the flavor of it. Welcome back to the freemilesmc, and we're today here in Serbia reviewing the Royal Enfield Classic 350. It's basically the more fancier version similar to the Meteor, and it's such a gorgeous bike looking at it. And even though the specs are like off the smaller side, the bike has 21 horsepower and 27 newton meters of torque out of its small 350cc engine. Besides its 350cc engine, this bike has a single disc at the front and has about a weight of 195 kilograms, which is very light for a motorbike like that, which makes me happy because the older true classic bikes were not that heavy, and I always kind of take an issue with very heavy classic bikes. The seat height is 85 centimeters, which is quite approachable to basically everyone. And the bike has basically all old halogen lights, which I think makes for an amazing look. And also from its electronic sides, the bike is very bare bones. The bike has no gear indicators, no rev meters, but it has a clock and basically everything you need for your raw motorcycle experience. And to make this classic bike arrive in the modern times, it has dual channel ABS. The bike offers quite a package, and we're today in this video going to explore like what this bike all in all offers. The bike was really nicely given to me for the day by a subscriber of mine, Igor, and he took a day off work, so huge respect to him for that. And yeah, let's hear from him what made him decide to buy this machine.
Hey,
yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So what made you decide to buy this beautiful bike?
I'm a beginner rider. This is my first motorcycle, and when it comes to buying your first motorcycle, there's only so much you can go for with a classic look.
Yeah.
So like you can get this, maybe you can get some kind of Husqvarna with that retro futuristic look, maybe a used Moto Guzzi. But I wanted a new motorcycle because I'm a beginner rider. I don't want it to break down all the time, so I got this. I think it's one of the best looking retro bikes on the market, like a beginner motorcycle.
Yes, you definitely have a point there, like with all the different parts of it, especially the front headlight and how the instruments look is absolutely gorgeous. And Royal Enfield really put like an effort into making this bike look very nice. So let's have a short feel on how the bike feels to sit on. For reference, I am 6'5", or around 196 centimeters. And this is how I sit on the bike. I'm now a bit of a taller individual, but it feels so far quite comfortable. And the handlebars feel quite low, especially for like a cruiser-ish bike, which really emphasizes this really classic feel of the bike that really feels like a bike from the 1960s. So let's go and take this bike for a spin. So we're now here out in the Serbian countryside, and it looks like the world is about to end, like weather-wise. Like the clouds are so dark and it's so slightly windy. And now it starts to rain. What a shame. But already on the way here I realized this bike is incredibly fun to drive. It is so fun also in the curves. Now here we have like, of course, wet road. But still, it's more of a chill classic bike. But especially here on like back roads like that, where you don't really know what's coming, it is the perfect bike, you know, because like for going fast around bends like that, you have basically enough power, and it's still like so fun. On any other bike, roads like this are sometimes not that fun, but with this it's amazing. And we now cannot completely lean as far as I would want as we are on a wet road, but we still like, this bike doesn't have enough power to get you into trouble, which is so nice. And we earlier took the bike along like some dry road, and we had such a good time. It's the embodiment of it's really nice to drive a slow bike fast. And the feeling of the Royal Enfield Classic 350 really embodies the classic spirit of motorcycle riding, because this really feels like an old motorcycle. With the lower handlebars compared to the Meteor, you have to give the bike stronger inputs to steer. It doesn't like just fall into the corners how the Meteor does, and it really feels like riding an old bike from the 60s. And you can see it's heavily raining here, and we're still like having fun in the curves. Like, on what bike do you like still think like, oh, this is a nice curvy road, when it's like pouring down like this? On this bike, it really fits that the bike doesn't have a rev meter, you know, because you can hear the very nice engine sound so nicely, and you can really hear where you're at in the RPMs. And for this kind of riding experience that is so raw, that is perfect. I love this. I have the rain hitting my chest, I have the rain hitting my legs with this like really raw engine underneath me. Woo! Like, what kind of bike is fun to drive in the rain like this? Wow, this is nasty. Ay, 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 ay. Woo-hoo-hoo. But one thing, as I'm currently getting completely soaked, I have to admit, the wind protection is very bad. Which is due to how the handlebars are on the bike. Like, you know, you have typical naked bike, no rain protection, but like this is on a different level. I mean, I have the water basically hitting like my legs already. Let's wait for Igor and see if he made it through the curves. Is that over there the view platform, or is that? Okay. Okay, so where should we go? Okay, I love that even weather like this is still fun, you know, because this bike is meant to be cruised and slowly enjoyed, you know. I think a good comparison to this motorcycle is actually whiskey, you know, where you like take a sip, have it sit in your mouth for a bit, feel the flavor of it, and you're not supposed to like drive the bike like rapidly and everything, so still in weather like this, you have a good time. Should we find protection from the rain for a moment, and then I'm completely wet to my underwear. So the weather luckily has improved, the sun is back out. As you can see, we're just driving through clouds of vaporizing. Igor is definitely having the advantage here. He's definitely having the advantage here on the Interceptor with the off-road tires up this steep mountain. As you just saw, we went up quite a steep hill. The bike doesn't have a lot of power with its 21 horsepower and 27 newton meters of torque, but it really drags my weight up so nicely. Honestly, the bike handles really amazing also, like as a little city bike, commuting and driving past traffic and everything. One thing I really like about this bike is the engine characteristic, because this is a very weak engine, but Royal Enfield somehow managed to pull off that the bike still feels quite potent, even with its little amount of horsepower. Like, the bike still feels like it goes, and that's impressive that they managed to pull that off. And like, usually all kind of talk about, oh, a character or full engine is on the same level as wine bullshit, but like, this still makes you feel like you're going quick, and that's really impressive. And in general, this bike just delivers all the thrills of riding a motorcycle so nicely without actually being focused on going fast. And the thing is, this bike feels fast. That it does really well, and it gives you all those vibrations, all this feedback. And with the handlebars being a bit lower than on the Meteor, like, you feel the different weight distribution, which makes this bike feel a bit older than the Meteor. Like, you have really the 1960s feel really much with the low handlebars, and you kind of feel like your weight is more in the front, which also benefits the frame a bit, even though I really have to say this is an amazing turning frame. However this frame is set up, this frame is just incredible. Even though the weight distribution makes the bike a bit more flickable, it takes more stronger inputs on the handlebars, because the handlebars are a bit lower and narrower, which doesn't lead to this just the bike falling perfectly into the turn feel that this frame usually has. Because this is the perfect bike for when you don't know what's coming. Because every other bike would have too much power, would be too quick, and like for this turn, this is just like so fun. This is what riding a motorcycle is about. This is really incredible. It does it so well. It does it so nice. And for a beginner bike, this is all the feels you can have. This is incredible. And also it's still so flickable and rideable. Also, the bike has a 5,000 kilometer service interval. So you have to service this bike regularly and not like on a 10,000 kilometer base. But I think for this kind of bike, that's definitely fine, as this is a bike that's meant to be enjoyed on a weekend. Royal Enfield actually of the old Classic used to also build a trail version which looked incredibly cool, and with this frame I'm kind of wishing that they would do that again, because that would fit this bike as well. One thing that I'm a bit missing about the Classic 350 is the heel shifter that the Meteor had. You can definitely live without it because of the different ergonomics and the bike more having this very upright classic bike feel. Because of that, it's alright, but still, it's something that I wouldn't notice if I wouldn't have ridden the Meteor before. But because I've ridden the Meteor before, I'm now like, where's my heel shifter, you know? Also, the engine brake is really phenomenal. Like when getting off the throttle, it does a lot of the work for you and gives you a nice feeling of deceleration, which I don't know, Royal Enfield seems to have their engine brakes really down. I just love the streamlined feeling of it. The bike feels completely flat in the sense of, like if there would be a connecting line from the front cap of the headlight over there all the way to the tail light. And that is, I think, a really nice stylish feature. And that's also really cool as a feeling from sitting on it. And that's also where it kind of gets its 1960s feeling from. That feels really good. Of course, that leads to absolutely zero wind protection and you feeling the wind between your legs, which is insane. And also, like, I love, you really have this old feeling, and with the Bike Riders film with Tom Hardy getting into cinema this month that I definitely want to see, like, this is kind of the feeling that the trailer of that film gave me. That is also the feeling that this bike gives me. And I think you cannot say a higher praise. That's really cool. The bike feels so authentic that when riding and I then brake a bit harder into a turn, I'm surprised when the ABS comes on, because I full on expecting the bike to be like slightly sliding around and stuff. Like that truly shows how well this bike basically incorporates the old and the modern. One thing about the old being there, see how much the mirror is shaking? Like you cannot see shit in that. Yeah, but apart from that, this is really cool. So, we just got back from taking this bike for a spin, and honestly I have to say I am quite amazed by what the Royal Enfield can do. It really feels like the Enfields of Enfields, and for you who bought this as a starter bike, I think this is an amazing first motorcycle.
Not scary at all, easy to ride.
Yeah, and really so well at that, because the 21 horsepower engine is very easy to handle and you can really have a lot of fun with it at the same time.
Pretty much, because you can always ride it to the rev limit.
Yeah.
Which I as a beginner would not be able to do on your Interceptor.
Yeah.
I would be too scared to do it. So that's why it's so fun.
Yeah, and also like, I don't know how Royal Enfield managed to do this, but for an engine with 21 horsepower and 27 newton meters of torque, you still end up being quite quick. Like the bike ends up feeling very quick in the end, because I rode the 411 engine as well, and with that you're basically constantly on the gas thinking, when does this bike go? And of course that is here a bit the case as well, down to the amount of power, but you don't realize it that much. And really this fun factor is really coming out when you're like in the curves, riding the bike. You have a good time accelerating from turn to turn, especially on those smaller backcountry roads where every other bike would not really shine.
I think wide country roads are the problem when you want to overtake someone.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, like everything above 80 is overtaking wise a bit of a stretch, I feel like. And also the amount of power is so controllable. Like we saw that earlier in the turn where we took the shot. There was a biker coming through and with like 120 horsepower and then like tiptoeing through the turn. And it is really nice for those kinds of roads, because you can really decide to push the bike here.
Yep.
One thing on that note, the tires don't really allow it. You still have the stock tires on the motorcycle?
Yeah, those are the stock tires. I didn't want to change them yet.
Yeah.
I just had it for 5,000 kilometers. I don't think it's time yet, but
yeah,
you should change them. If you buy this motorcycle, just change them.
Yeah, the tires end up being sketchy. Like earlier you were riding behind me, and I managed to have quite a slip on the bike and running wide.
And this is where we insert the video of this.
Yeah, exactly. Because the centripetal forces on the tires were too much, and I was so surprised by that happening. And you also told you had a few slips as well with the bike.
Yeah, especially when it's raining and you're in town, maybe on a crosswalk, on the painted part of the crosswalk. I did a little drift.
Yeah, and doing a little drift in rain on 21 horsepower is pretty wild. I had a similar experience once on a Honda Rebel 1100, and there it's understandable with 90 horsepower, but like not with 21. And also when it comes to the tires, the tire ratio is quite odd, right? With like, it has 190 19s in the front and 120 80 18s in the rear.
Yeah.
And also tube tires. So how is it to find tires with that?
It's I was looking online. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can get them in Europe. Maybe you can get them in the US, where there's a wide selection of tires. Here in Serbia, it's a little tough.
Okay.
But I'll let you know when I'm about to buy some tires what I went for.
You already mentioned that you rode the bike now for 5,000 kilometers. How well did the bike hold up over that amount of kilometers?
There were some issues with the instrument cluster.
Okay.
It just broke down on me. The LCD died and the speedo died. I called the dealership up, and they couldn't find any errors on it. So it would die and come back to life, like periodically, totally random. And they will not do anything with it until they see an error on their computer.
Ah, okay, yeah. That's of course then quite the bummer. And if you cannot figure out the thing, that becomes quite complicated. And in general, like, how was your like dealership experience here? With like, do you find dealerships here? Does that work?
The Royal Enfield dealership here in Belgrade is not too great. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I should blame them. We were talking about the dealership network and how somebody went bankrupt and everything. So if you want to get a small spare part, it has to come from India. So you're going to wait for it.
That's kind of a bit of a problem with the Enfields, and also a problem with this one. If you, as a motorcycle dealership, want to take in Royal Enfield as a brand, the amount of money you pay for basically the license and the franchising system is not that much. Like it's quite affordable for a dealership, which means you always get like new enterprises really often that come and go. So 1 minute there is a Royal Enfield dealership in your town, soon they're closed, or open up and close, open up and close. And that's really often a situation that you have. And of course, if you then get the Classic 350, that's also something that comes up. And of course, you then also sometimes have the quality that can be a bit mixed. It's not Royal Enfield's fault, I have to say that, definitely. It's through the dynamic of the low purchasing price into the brand as a dealership that you get like very mixed results sometimes. That's, I think, an issue that you have kind of with all Royal Enfields, but at the same time, even though that's a bit of a downside, the bike all in all is really great, I have to say.
As I'm being negative here, that's the only real problem I've had, and also the instrument cluster fogs up.
Yeah, but that's
a problem on all of them.
On all Enfields like mine over there as well.
Apart from that, no problems whatsoever. It never stalled on me, it never stopped. The brakes are pretty good for what they are.
Yeah.
It stops the bike, it's great. No problems. It's great. Great commuter.
I also have to say, the engine is phenomenal with carrying its weight. Like, as soon as the clutch is engaged, the bike will not die on you because of too much load. Like, even if you're going up a steep mountain as quite a heavy dude, it will all be fine. And even if you then start driving in a too high gear, it always manages to pull itself out.
It's pretty torquey.
Yeah. One thing with like the now not that impressive specs of 21 horsepower and 27 newton meters of torque, those specs have a huge advantage, and that's the fuel consumption. Because the fuel consumption is crazy low on this motorcycle. You get, I think, 2.5 liters per 100 kilometers. Which,
something about that.
Which equates to 460 kilometers on one tank. That's almost BMW GS numbers. That's insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially then like you use this as a commuter bike, so...
Yeah, I ride this bike to work a few times per week, and I fill up the tank and I forget when I filled it up. I can just go back and forth to work for weeks.
And that is really insane. And also, like, if you then consider the price of fuel, that's like no public transport is going to beat that. Yep. That is really, really impressive.
€10 to fill this bad boy up.
Yeah, €10 and getting to work for $10. Like, that's so cool.
Yep.
And I feel like this also really, like, the simplicity of it and the well-usability really sums up basically the Royal Enfield spirit with also the great looks. And this bike is incredibly functional. Also, like, the fenders. Like, you see, we now drove through heavy rain.
Full fenders.
Some dirt road, and the bike is basically clean. And if you would do that on any other bike, the bike would be completely dirty. And this big fender over here is really impressive. And that usability is so at the front of the bike is really cool. And at the same time that you get all this motorcycle feel. Like, this is not a fast bike, this is not a performance-oriented bike, but you feel every mile you go. And that in the best way possible. Like, from all the inputs you have, how strong you have to pull the clutch and the brake lever, which can be a bit something to get used to as a newer rider, but also that gets easier the older the bike gets. Like, I had that too with my Interceptor. So definitely usability is at the front of this bike with still amazing fun and also amazing looks. But the amazing looks of the bike kind of come at a price because all this chrome needs to be polished. And Royal Enfield chrome sometimes can have a tendency to wear out a bit quicker than from other brands. I'm basically comparing it to the Japanese market because that's where my other bikes came from. And I know the problem already on my Interceptor that I'm basically polishing all the time. Yep. But I have to say, here it still looks quite good, so you're managing.
Yeah, no problems so far. I polish it with some Ippone, if that's what you call it. Polish on every third or fourth wash. All the chrome parts. This one, and the mirrors, and the
mirrors.
Headlight.
Oh, the
that's
mirrors.
Plastic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's plastic.
I feel like with all this in mind, with the very beautiful looks, also I really have to say I really like the front of the bike with the front headlight. The small little lights on top.
That's really cool.
That's so cool. And the instruments, and then just the rawness also without the rev meter is so cool. Basically feels like the Truest Royal Enfield experience. Like, I feel like this is the Enfield of Enfields. And it's basically the original Enfield. They have this theme of like motorcycles being built like a gun or like a bullet. How also like some of the names are. And you really see that also in the design of this bike, how flat the bike is. You're really sitting on top of the bike. This bike feels like a solid line, and it is also such a good retro experience. I think you don't have any experience that can be compared for the price that feels that authentically retro. Like, you really feel like on a bike of the 1960s with modern reliability and also modern safety, as the bike also has dual channel ABS and an anti-hopping clutch. This is a really, really good bike, and especially for the price. And yeah, I have to say, this is the original Enfield, it feels like, and the Enfield of Enfields. And on that note, thank you for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks again to Igor for giving me his bike for this video, and I would really appreciate you guys subscribing, and see you soon.